Good evening. I'm Jason Debly, and tonight's whiskey review is a Canadian whiskey produced by Highwood Distillers. It's called 90. It's called 90 because it's 90 proof, and the age statement is 20 years. Unfortunately, this Canadian whiskey is not available in the United States. In Canada, it's available in Manitoba, Alberta, Ontario, just trying to think if there's anywhere else, Saskatchewan. I paid $50. Actually, I didn't pay $50. My mother paid $50 for a 20-year-old Canadian whiskey. I was intrigued. She picked it up in Ontario for me. God bless her. A non-drinking Baptist mother bought it for her drinking son. So, where should I start? A little bit about Highwood Distillers. Highwood Distillers were founded in 1974 in Alberta. Canada is a much younger country than Scotland, and although it does have some old turn-of-the-century distillers, Highwood Distillers has been around since 1974 in Alberta, in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains, in a place called High River. The distillery in 1974 was called Sunnyvale, and then in 1984 they renamed it Highwood Distillers. This whiskey, I have to start with discussing the label. Look at that label. It says rye whiskey. It reads Canadian rye whiskey, or actually ultra premium oak cask aged Canadian rye whiskey. Why do I go on about the statement rye whiskey? What bothers me is that this whiskey is 100% corn whiskey. The mash bill is corn. There is no rye in it. Why do they call it rye? They call it rye whiskey because in Canada, or this is the explanation that was given to me, the synonym for whiskey in Canada is rye. Some people will say, I'll have a glass of rye, and what they mean is Canadian whiskey. I think it's a little bit deceptive, and it would be better if they would simply call it corn whiskey or Canadian whiskey, but not use the word rye. But a lot of drinkers prefer rye. Rye brings spiciness to a spirit, whereas other grains like wheat bring sweetness, and corn actually brings body and some sweetness. And then, of course, barley, which is actually not in this mash bill, which comes from Scottish barley, brings, for me, tremendous complexity. So, it's 90 proof, hence the name 90. The closure is not cork. It's silicone rubber pseudo-cork. But it makes a very good closure, and it seals it well and keeps oxygen out, which I think is very important. Cork is porous and actually wouldn't do as good a job as this, so I'm okay with that. $20-year-old Canadian whiskey for $50. I was skeptical. The nose on this undiluted whiskey is, I smell cedar, cooked plums, definitely vanilla, definitely oak. A word about the oak. The oak that was involved in the aging of this whiskey comes from either Jim Beam or Jack Daniel's distilleries. So it's ex-bourbon casks that the corn whiskey was aged in for 20 years. Bottom line is the nose is very nice. And now on the palate, see what this tastes like. Melted caramel, maple cream. It's sweet, and it's good. It's luxurious, touches of leather, white vanilla, or white chocolate, French vanilla ice cream, rich, luxurious, mouth coating. Nutmeg, toasted coconut, and there's a nice spiciness, like mid to late palate, that kind of dries it up a little bit. The finish is long. The taste remaining is a bit spicy. You've got butterscotch, caramel, white chocolate. I think of like toasted coconut or macaroons with a bit of spiciness to them. It's good whiskey, there's no doubt about it. For the price, very good value. This whiskey is not light. It is not delicate. It is robust. It is full of spice, nutmeg, a little bit of thyme. This is whiskey that it's got some punch to it, but it's not bitter. It's not biting. It's not hot. It's refined. It's smooth, but it's got texture, if that makes sense. It's smooth like velvet, but velvet has a texture to it. Very good. Canadians, buy it. Americans, when you come to Canada, please buy it. I think you'll be delighted by it. And it shows that Canadian whiskey is more than just light, tasteless mix for a good cocktail. Highly recommended. 90 by Highwood Distillers, 20-year-old Canadian whiskey. They say it's rye, but we know it's corn whiskey. Cheers.